Hey guys, this is Daniel from CNC Labs. This is just going to be a follow-up video following the assembly video where Ben took you through getting the core parts of the machine up and running. So getting the table built, installing the gantry, spindle, motors, all the wiring, etc. And today we're just going to be going over how to kind of get everything connected to your computer, kind of get the machine moving, some first checks, as well as setting up the wasteboard table and your first surfacing, just kind of get everything all done, ready to go for your first project. So we'll dive into this. So just as a first check, always make sure you have your safety equipment as needed. Obviously, always wear eye protection whenever the machine is running, even if you're just doing something simple like drilling holes or using any kind of power tools. And obviously power off any electronics when you're making fine adjustments. So you don't want to be adjusting little tiny bump stops or limit switches while the machine's on. You never know when your friend's going to go hit the laptop and send the x-axis into your pinky finger. Okay, so diving in, the first thing we'll do is going over to our computer. So in this case, I have a laptop. If you have a desktop, whatever it may be, I guess set that up where you want it. First thing we'll need to do is install G-Sender. So you can see I have G-Sender version 1.4.10. That's our latest version at the time of this video. If you see a newer version like 11, 12, etc., obviously go with that. But you'll want to have at least version 1.4.9. So go ahead and download that. And then next thing we'll do is grab the USB cable that we previously plugged into the controller down here. And just go into any port on your computer, plug that in, and you'll want to go hover on the left top corner of your screen, and you'll want to make sure that you choose all the way at the bottom firmware. There's two firmware types, there's Gerbil and there's Gerbil HAL. So you'll just want to make sure you select Gerbil HAL, and then go ahead and find that first recognized device. So we'll go ahead and click that to connect, and you'll see this nice little green check mark that says connected, just kind of confirming that. So if upon connection you're greeted with any alarms in the top right corner here, just go ahead and click unlock. Some of these can be triggered just by the RS-485 communication with your spindle kit, kind of getting set up, doing the initial handshake. So the first thing that we'll want to do is just a simple jog test. So we'll want to try jogging the X, the Y, and the Z axes, make sure everything's working. So we'll go ahead and take a jog in the Z, and we'll move downwards in our case. You can see our spindle's all the way at its upper position. So we'll just move down, and you can see the spindle's moving just fine. And same thing for the X and the Y. So we'll jog to the right in the X direction, and then jog forward towards the front of the table in the negative Y direction as well. Again, you can see it's moving quite fine. Cool, so now that we know that's all working, the next thing we'll want to look at is to make sure our homing is working as well. So you'll see these four little buttons in the top right corner of G-Sender. You see X, Y, Z, A. We'll start by first trying out the Z axis. So I'll show you what happens when we press the Z button here. You can see the Z axis just flies right up and stops, locates, and it's parked there right now. So that's working good. The next thing we'll do is the X axis as well. So we'll go ahead and press that little X square. And you see the exact same behavior there, so it just goes all the way to the left. And then the last one is the Y axis. So we'll press the little Y rectangle, and the machine will go all the way to the back and home and locate right there too. Cool. So out of those three axes that we've just homed, the Z, if you have any issues with that, if you see it alarm or you see it never actually gets to its home position, you may need to move that sensor inwards or outwards from where it sits in that little recessed pocket. So you can see it's just sitting here. You want this to be flush with the plate, like we talked about in the assembly video and instructions. And then generally the X-axis, same deal. You kind of want this to be flush with where the plate stops on that little rubber bumper. And then in the y-axis, if you have any immediate alarm issues and you're kind of not sure why, everything looks generally adjusted properly, you most likely have your Y1 and Y2 sensors and motors flipped. So you need to have the left motor and the left limit switches running on the Y1 cables going to the Y1 inputs on the controller. So the next thing we'll talk about is the spindle kit. If you've opted for that option, so first thing is that you should note that you should have the power supply for the VFD plugged into the wall before you turn on your controller. The next thing is that we'll have to make a small setting change in our firmware. So we'll go over to our laptop again where we've already connected, and we'll go to the top right corner here, firmware, and it'll open up this firmware tool window. And we can scroll all the way down and we'll find the setting 395, and this setting is called default spindle. So this is basically just going to select the desired spindle whenever the controller is started up for the first time after a power cycle. So we'll want to choose this option here, H100. So we'll click this, and then we'll go over to the right side and click apply new settings to save that setting, and we can exit out this window. After that, we just want to power cycle the controller. So we'll go to the back of the controller here, flip that little black power switch, and then flip it back on. And then, like we mentioned in the assembly video, anytime you're using the power system and you've just turned the machine back on, you'll need to do that e-stop reset system cycle. And the next thing we'll want to do is set up G-Sender for spindle control as well. So we go to the top right corner here, that little gear icon for settings. We'll go down to spindle/laser. And you'll just want to hit this little toggle to enable the spindle and laser tab to show up on the screen. The other thing you'll want to do is make sure that your min and max speed here for the spindle speed are set to 7,500 minimum and 24,000 maximum. So those are all correct. And the next test we can kind of do is just go into the spindle laser tab that we have over here. And you'll see this is already set in spindle mode. And you'll see this little slider where you can kind of set what speed you want here. Let's go 18,000 and a bit RPM. And we can hit that clockwise, that CW button, and that should start the rotation of the spindle. Before we do that, we'll put on our eye protection and we'll hit that button. And you can see spindle starts right up. So it'll get up to speed. And obviously if you want to change speed, just change that little slider. You go faster, slower, pretty self-explanatory. If you want to stop the spindle, you just press this little stop button right here. In the event of emergency or I guess something going wrong, you can either press the e-stop button to kill power everywhere, which is I guess what you should be doing in an emergency, or you can also press this little red button on the front panel of the VFD as well, if needed. The next thing you want to do is, let's turn the spindle back on one more time, and we're just going to spin it up and then stop it, and we'll just keep a close eye on the spindle to make sure that it's spinning in the right direction. So if you're staring at this from top view, from bird's eye view of the machine, obviously you want this to be spinning clockwise to make sure your end mill is cutting in the right direction. So we'll spin this up, and then we'll just shut it off right away after. And we'll just keep a close eye on the little collet. It is indeed spinning clockwise. So everything there looks good, and our spindle is good to go. So now that we've confirmed our machine is moving correctly in the X, Y, Z axis, and our rotation of the spindle is correct, it's time to move on to preparing our table base. So we left off in the assembly video with just the aluminum crossbeam kind of skeleton structure of the table. And the next step is to figure out what kind of table setup you want to have. So there's basically three options. The first one is you can just have a single 3/4 inch MDF sheet as your table base and use that as a spoil board as well. So you'll surface that, and any kind of dings and scratches, you'll have to replace the entire table base. The second option is to do that same table base, but to put a sacrificial MDF sheet on top of that. So you'll basically be able to replace that top surface only. You can surface that as many times as you need, and you'll have a bit more thickness, so you'll get a little bit more screw engagement when you're screwing projects down and things like that. And the last third option is to use T-tracks. So that's what we have right here on this machine, and we'll kind of show setting that up. Obviously, we sell an 8-piece T-track set. So the way this works is kind of elegant because you can get a full 4x8 MDF sheet, and you can cut it down to get your first table base layer. And then with the remaining 44 inches of that, you can actually cut it into little slivers that work out perfectly with the T-tracks to occupy the full width of the machine. So we'll show you how to do that, and then we'll also provide the measurements for the table base as well along the way. So like we mentioned, we're going to be getting a 4x8 sheet of 3/4 inch thick MDF, and we're going to be cutting this down to a length of 51 3/4 of an inch, just to match the exact same inside width of our table base. And you can see after cutting that down to length, we've got about 45 inches left on our sheet. So you'll want to grab that table base that we just cut out and slide it through the front of your AltMill, just over those cross beams, and slide it until it's flush with the front edge. And then next we'll be going underneath the table, and we will be using the through holes on those cross beam members to send in some 1-inch wood screws. If you find these are poking through the top, you might opt to use 3/4 inch length wood screws, depending on the screw size you're using. So next you can take that remaining 44 or 45 inches roughly of MDF, and we can take that piece of wood and chop it into 6 1/8 width slats, which we'll have 7 of, and we'll apply those onto the table with T-tracks. And we'll be screwing these all down. So we'll want to go ahead and use a small pilot drill bit to drill our holes. Each slat for our setup, we use 8 holes total, and then we just recess the heads of the screws using a larger drill bit, just to make sure they sit below the surface of the table. You definitely want to leave at least probably 3 millimeters or more of recess between the head of the screw and the top of the MDF surface, just because we're going to come back and surface the entire top of those boards, and we really don't want to be running into any steel screw heads. So now that we got our table all set up, it's time to surface the top of the wasteboard and get a nice flat level surface to be mounting our projects to. To do this, we're going to be using a 22 millimeter diameter surfacing bit available in our store, and then we're going to be using the surfacing tool in G-Sender. So we'll first go and install our surfacing bit. If you want to use a larger surfacing bit, something like 1 inch or 1.5 inches is also good. I guess the larger the bit, the less time this whole thing will take. And then for this job, we're also going to be using the dust shoe, just to pick up all the mess this is going to leave. So we'll go on over to G-Sender and open up the surfacing tool. And you'll see it first prompts you for an X and Y dimension of your surfacing area. And the easiest way to get these numbers is to simply jog your bit all the way to the front left corner of the table. And the next thing we'll do is click 0 all. So that's going to set our X, Y, zeros. And then we're going to jog the machine all the way to the right, all the way until it gets to the opposite side of that top spoil board surface. Next, we'll jog the machine all the way to the back of the table, again until the cutting bit is at the edge of our top layer to be surfaced. So you can see our coordinates of the X and Y are 1212 and 1236 when we're at the back corner there. So we'll go into our surfacing tool again, and we'll just enter 1212 for the X, 1236 for the Y. Next, there's cut depth and maximum depth. For our case, we'll probably just skim 1 millimeter off the top, and we can always come back and do this again if we need to. And like we mentioned, we're using a 22 millimeter diameter bit, so we'll enter that. We'll use 20,000 RPM for this, and then we're gonna kind of do this a bit quickly, so we'll do 8,000 millimeters per minute feed rate. And then for step over, we'll do 60%, and that's just gonna control the percentage distance of the bit that it steps over for each pass. These two patterns will just generate different tool path shapes. So we're going to be using the squiggly zigzag surfacing type. And then this is your origin. So We'll be using the front left corner of the machine table, so we'll select this front left corner, and then we hit generate G-code. And you can see it just generates a little preview here for us, and we can click run on main visualizer to pull it up onto our screen. And next thing we can do now is, since we've already set our zeros at the front left corner of the machine right here, we can very easily just click go X, Y, 0, and our machine will come back right to the same corner. And the last thing we need to do before we can run the job is just zero the Z-axis. So I'll jog the machine maybe somewhere close to the middle so we don't get a skewed height result. Obviously there's a couple of different ways to probe or set your Z-axis 0. In our case, we're going to be using the standard touch plate block, but obviously you can use the auto 0 touch plate block we also offer, or you can simply use the paper method, or just kind of lower your Z-axis until you get to the top surface of the MDF. So we'll set up our touch plate here, and we'll go back into G-Center and click on Z probe. We'll do the touch confirmation and start the probing cycle. Okay, so our Z-axis 0 has been set. We don't need to do anything else now. We can essentially just send the machine back to our 0 position right here, and we should be ready to run. I'm going to put on my safety glasses first, and then we'll hook up the 4-inch dust collection hose to our dust shoe here, and this is just pre-installed with our included AltMill dust shoe. You want to make sure that your dust shoe is adjusted at the correct height so that your bristles are just flush with the end of the surfacing bit. And next we'll go on and turn on the power for the dust collector, and then we can hit start job. So now that we've got a nice fresh leveled surface on our wasteboard, we're ready to go into making some of our first projects. So stay tuned for any kind of future videos covering that. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, feedback about this video, let us know in the comments. Take care, guys.